crack a hard shell. Jay, I've heard you talk about it before. He is something. It's some skeletons he needs to address. Yeah. I think personally.
BC, you and I were kind of talking about this and smiling at our own past. But like when you got drafted to Toronto, was it an older locker room? Because I know you had Alvin Williams.
It was 2 young guys, and everybody else had at least 8 years, and Alvin probably like 3 years. But yeah, we were young.
How did your vets talk to you about? Because I know there were ways you
remember. I had Charles Oakley.
Oak, yeah.
Yeah, I had Kevin Willis. I had Doug Christie. I had D. Brown. So all of these guys, like D. Brown played with Larry Bird. Doug Christie played with Magic. Obviously, Oak played with Jordan. Kevin Willis played with Neek. So when I walk in, the first day it was just kind of like, getting the feel of.
They be having me fired up sometime in the back room,
For good reason.
Vince, what's your reaction to now a second incident with Ja Morant holding a gun on Instagram Live?
I'm disappointed because his mother and my mother are very good friends, and for Ja, I think he has to take a step back in a quiet room, a dark room, and figure out what's important to him. What's important to you? What are you trying to accomplish from this day forward? Because you're on the verge of blowing it all. You have 200 plus million. What are you doing? Are you trying to give it back? If that's the case, just go donate it. Because that's what you're doing. You're giving it back. And it's like, one thing about Ja I like about him, and it's now going to continue to be overshadowed. He's great with kids. He gives back. You see after games, he and his daughter to go, and she's understanding how to give back and do for others. He's empowering that to her. But it's going to always get overshadowed because of this. Like, he has to just sit back and say, what's important? Because those followers, those kids that you touch off the court all the time are now following you.
There's something extra tragic. You just brought it up about a good person who is self-destructive,
yes.
whose destructive tendencies seem to be aimed at themselves, right? It seems that way to me.
Vince Carter, ESPN NBA analyst, joining us this morning on Keyshawn, J. Will, and Max. VC, I'm going to let you analyze some stuff now. Lakers Nuggets tonight at 8:30 p.m. Eastern time on ESPN and ESPN Radio. Who do you have tonight, VC, and who do you have to take the series?
Well, I'm going to work backwards. I have the Denver Nuggets taking the series. I think, in my opinion, I think Game 1 is important for the Lakers because at the end of the day, if this goes to 7, it comes back to Denver. And Denver's been damn good at home. You know what I'm saying? So I think LeBron needs to get his team, establish their dominance early if possible, particularly Anthony Davis. I think Anthony Davis is huge in this series on both ends of the court, not just offensively. So I think the Lakers need to find a way to get one in Denver, which is a tough task.
BC, what's another – there's so many good matchups, right? Like KCP played for the Lakers. Bruce Brown, you saw him in that last series against Kevin Durant, knows how to be a pest. Aaron Gordon.
I think –
like that's a matchup against LeBron. It's not like Andrew Wiggins where he's 205 pounds. It's dude like 230.
What do you say to that? And you understood it and respected it. And I was prepared each and every night, but I understood the do's and don'ts, and they made sure that each and every night. But I had an entire locker room of veterans. You walk into an NBA locker room now, as you know, it's the total opposite. You might see one or two veterans. Well, one veteran, and everybody else is young. So it's kind of the blind leading the blind.
Look, I never see Ja with his teammates. It's really interesting. Like out, like and about. Like it kind of like clicked on me as you talk about, because a lot of that stuff, I know that when the season's over and everybody goes different ways. But like I just wonder, like with Jaren Jackson or like with Tyus Jones, like do they do things together? Because there isn't. Steven Adams could be that, but I don't know if he's as demonstrative as a leader as those other guys.
And the one thing, it's said often is when you have veterans that aren't playing much, it's hard for their voice to carry and stick.
It's got to be a guy who still can do it.
Yeah, I mean,
C.J. McCollum, like
I think
someone like
Udonis,
that.
though, is an exception to the rule because he's been there, so he's respected. As far as his accomplishments. But yeah, like I said, guys that are, for me, I was fortunate enough, and I told coaches like, I would love to come to into your locker room and be the vet, but let me go show them by example. Let me go do it on the court, not just use my voice all the time, because it's like some guys that doesn't translate when you're having a conversation. It's like, yeah, I hear you, but when you can go out on LeBron, but he has to make LeBron work. And I think if I'm in Denver's locker room, I'm telling him, don't be passive. Don't let LeBron off the hook where defensively he's always playing help side as opposed to having guarding actions and having to guard a guy going after him. I feel like that's important. And I think he plays a huge role in that because, like we said earlier, LeBron is going to, put his mark on the series and on game one. But it's tough for LeBron to do that if he's having to guard that action or guard that guy going at him every other play.
Vince, we're out of here in 30 seconds, so quickly. Does Jimmy Butler give the Heat a puncher's chance?
I think Jimmy Butler does, but who is going to follow? Who's going to be number two? Is Bam Adebayo? Bam Adebayo is going to be that number two guy, and they need a third guy to play well. I don't know. Exactly. Tell me
nice
who.
to have Tyler Hero or someone, right?
Absolutely,
Yeah.
but they need somebody to have a special series to give them a puncher's chance,
Seems
in my
like
opinion.
Bam might be that third guy sometimes.
Gentlemen, KJM, who does another title mean more for? AD or LeBron? 888-SAY-ESPN. KJM, ESPN.
And it's scary, and you've heard multiple people. I've heard, Jalen say it's a cry for help, and we